Have you ever knit a sweater in the round and then realized when you were all done that it's way too large? In case you've watched my latest video on where I wash my minimal sweater in the washing machine, then you know that I did. So I'm going to try to fix that today, and I thought I would show you how. So I'm going to add a faux seam to the sweater, and in the beginning I thought that I would put this out as a tutorial, but then when I went on doing it I realized that I have no idea if this is going to hold up. So if you want to do this yourself, please go ahead, but I can't take any responsibility because I haven't really tried if the seam will hold over time, but I think this would be a nice sweater surgery experiment. So let's go ahead. I also had some problems with my equipment in the beginning, so sorry for the blurry picture. The first thing that I did was, of course, that I had to get an idea of how many stitches I would have to cut out and where the actual seam should be. So I laid out the sweater on the table in order to get a better idea of how big it is, and then I used some pins in order to secure the fabric. After that I actually tried it on and had a look in the mirror if I would like the fit of it, but I wasn't really, I don't know what I was thinking, but I held the camera in the wrong way, so I can insert a little clip here, but it doesn't really show. So then I had a look at myself and was thinking about if I would like the fit, which I actually did. And then I counted how many stitches I had to take away, counted from the middle stitch. So in my case that was 12 stitches to each side, so 24 stitches for each seam, which is 50 stitches whole, so it's quite a lot that I put away. The sweater has an A shape and is knitted from the top down, so I had a look at the middle stitch under the arm, and from there I counted how many stitches I wanted to take away. I quite liked the fit under the arm, but then in the top I thought that it was way too wide. So what I did is that my faux seam, which I used mattress stitch for, started one stitch beside the middle stitch and got wider until the 12 stitches on the hem. One of my favorite tools to use are stitch markers, and in order to know that I would be in the right place when I did the mattress stitch all the way down, was that I marked the 12 stitches to the side with a stitch marker. The next step was starting the mattress stitch, and I had quite some good help from the stripes in the sweater. So I started with one stitch beside the middle stitch for the first 2 stripes, and then I went one stitch further away for every stripe. So in the third stripe I was 2 stitches beside the middle stitch, in the fourth one 3, and so forth until the 12 stitches on the hem. You can see that the seam on the inside is quite thick and bulky, so I decided that I had to do something about it, and I am going to cut it down and then crochet it in order to secure all of the loose ends. At first I had a little bit of a hard time to decide where exactly I should cut, as I was cutting from the wrong side of the fabric. When I was in Edinburgh in March, I took a class with Bristol Ivy, and she had a reminder that I thought was quite good. So if you are looking at your knitted fabric from the wrong side, then you would see all those different bows, and she talked about them as of smileys and frownies. The frownies that you can see are the upper arch of your knit stitch that come to the wrong side on the front of the stitch and then go around and then go back down, and the smileys are the loops in between the single stitches. So that was how I knew when I wanted to cut beside the stitch that I had to cut into the smileys, and I decided that I would cut 3 stitches from the stitch that I used in order to sew together in madras stitch. And of course, because I didn't have a straight seam, I had to jump out one stitch for every stripe, so that I would have a seam allowance of 3 stitches all the way to the top. When I was done with the cutting, of course, I did it on the other side of the seam as well. The last step really was to crochet the seam allowances on both sides together, and I used a single crochet stitch in order to secure all of the ends. Before I did this, of course, I tried it out on my swatch. I tried to tear apart my swatch, and in the middle of the piece there was no problem, but actually on the edges of my swatch, so the cast off edge, there I managed to tear it apart, so I gave just the cast on or the cast off edge some extra love and made some extra stitches there with the crochet hook. The very last thing I did was to sew in my ends. I know that this is not really the tidiest seam that you could ever have, and I have no idea if it will hold up in the long run, but I would be really interested if you have tried anything similar, if you have any other techniques for doing a faux seam, or if you are already seeing something that I did horribly wrong and now, Tabia, this is not going to work out in the long run, or you could have done this so much better. Please let me know in the comments below. I would really appreciate some feedback. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week in a brand new video. Bye bye!